All right, so today we are diving into a Reddit post that really kind of threw me for a loop.
Oh, lay it on me. What's the topic that has you all puzzled?
So get this.
Mm.
The original poster, he's 21, and he's kind of sort of maybe falling for an escort, a 25-year-old woman he's been seeing regularly.
Okay, already juicy. I can see why you're intrigued.
And get this, it's not just like one or two dates. He's bringing her flowers, booking extra time, even texting her after their encounters, like full-on smitten.
Sounds like we might be wading into girlfriend experience territory here.
Girlfriend experience, is that like a thing?
Oh, yeah. It's more common than you might think. Basically, it's when a sex worker goes above and beyond the purely transactional.
So more than just the.
Exactly. It's about creating a sense of intimacy, companionship, even romance,
Um,
fulfilling those fantasies that some clients have.
And that takes some serious skill, right? Like to be able to create that illusion.
Absolutely. Emotional labor is a huge part of sex work, and the girlfriend experience really takes it to another level. It requires a deep understanding of psychology, the ability to read people, and the talent to make someone feel truly seen and desired, even if it's within a very specific and often temporary context.
Okay, so in this situation with this Reddit guy, he's obviously feeling a connection, but how can he be sure if it's real or just her being really good at her job?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it gets even trickier because he mentions she broke her own no unprotected sex rule with him.
Yeah, that definitely stood out in the post.
For good reason. That's a major red flag, both in terms of her professional boundaries and their health.
I mean, breaking her own rules like that really throws a wrench into things, right?
Absolutely. And the Reddit comment section went wild.
Oh, I bet. Everyone playing relationship expert and armchair epidemiologist.
For sure. Lots of warnings about STIs, which, let's be real, is a valid concern.
Yeah, I mean, even if they both think they're clean, that's not always a guarantee, right?
Exactly. Someone brought up the whole window period thing, which is basically the time between when you might have gotten infected and when a test can actually detect it.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's super important. It means someone can test negative, think they're in the clear, but still unknowingly pass something on. Makes the whole clean thing way more complicated.
Okay, that makes sense. But honestly, for me, the scariest comments were the ones about baby trapping.
Yeah, that's a heavy one. The idea that she might be trying to get pregnant on purpose to force a relationship?
Exactly. Like, is that a real thing? Do people actually do that?
Sadly, yes. It's a form of manipulation, and it highlights the power imbalances that can exist, especially in the context of sex work. It's a really vulnerable position to be in.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty terrifying. And it kind of makes me wonder about those comments suggesting she might see this guy as an exit plan.
Right, like he's her ticket out of the sex industry.
Yeah, like a knight in shining armor.
It's a tempting narrative, but it's important to remember that it's just that, a narrative. We don't know this woman's story, her motivations, or her desires. It's easy to fall into stereotypes and assumptions, especially when we're talking about sex work, but the reality is much more nuanced. Every sex worker has their own individual reasons for being in the industry, and their experiences and goals are going to be just as diverse.
Right, right. So we're trying to fit her into a box that we created in our heads.
Exactly. And that box often reflects our own biases and preconceived notions more than it does her reality.
So where does that leave us? We've got a guy who feels a connection, a woman whose job it is to create that connection, and a whole lot of speculation about whether those feelings are real or just part of the transaction.
And let's not forget the unprotected sex, which adds a whole other layer of risk and uncertainty to the mix.
Okay, so we've got this whole tangled web of emotions, ethics, and potential consequences. But reading through the comments, I did notice a few people suggesting a way for our love-struck Redditor to get some clarity.
Ah, do tell.
Well, they were saying he should just ask her out on a date, like a real date, no money involved, and see how she responds.
Interesting. So basically remove the transactional element and see if there's anything left.
Yeah, exactly. Some people even said her reaction would be telling, regardless of whether she said yes or no.
Yeah, true. If she's genuinely interested in him, the idea of exploring a relationship outside of their current dynamic might be appealing, even if it's also, well, complicated. Then again, if she shuts him down completely.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Like, even if she does have feelings, she might not be ready or willing to act on them.
Precisely. And that brings us to another important point that came up in the comments, that the ethics of it all. Is it even right to pursue a romantic relationship with someone who's in the sex work industry?
Right, right. Like, are you kind of asking them to change who they are or give up their livelihood?
Exactly. It's a complex issue with no easy answers. On the one hand, people deserve love and connection, regardless of their profession. On the other hand, you have to consider the power dynamics, the stigma, and the very real challenges that sex workers face. It's about respect, communication, and understanding the nuances of their situation.
Yeah, it's definitely not as simple as just saying love is love.
Not at all. There are so many factors to consider, and ultimately it comes down to the individuals involved and their ability to navigate those complexities with honesty and empathy.
So where do we land on all of this? Is our Redditor headed for heartbreak? Is he being played? Or is there a chance, however slim, that he's stumbled into something real?
Well, as much as we love a good mystery, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave those questions unanswered for now. Our goal in this deep dive wasn't to provide definitive solutions, but rather to explore the different facets of this situation and spark some thoughtful conversation along the way.
Right. We've talked about the girlfriend experience, the emotional labor involved in sex work, the risks of blurring boundaries, and the ethical dilemmas that can arise. It's a lot to unpack.
It really is. And for me, what stands out is the reminder that human connection can emerge in the most unexpected places. We're complex creatures, driven by a deep-seated need for intimacy and belonging. And sometimes that search for connection leads us down unconventional paths.
Paths with a lot of twists and turns. But hey, that's life, right? Full of gray areas and unanswered questions.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's important to sit with those questions, to embrace the complexity of human relationships, and resist the urge to force them into neat little boxes. Because sometimes the most insightful answers are found not in the conclusions we draw, but in the questions we continue to ask.
So true. Well said. This deep dive might be over, but the conversation is far from finished. And who knows, maybe this will inspire some of our listeners to take a closer look at their own relationships, their own biases, and their own search for genuine connection in a world that often feels anything but straightforward.
Here's hoping. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.